This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon here on Mitch Marathon Month. And joining me on the phone is Mick Cripps of, well, formerly of LA Guns and now of the Brutalists. You should definitely check out their debut album, The Brutalists. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere else where you can find good music. And co-hosting, and I don't do a lot of co-host spots anymore, it is from Jetboy Billy Rowe. Their new album, Born to Fly, came out earlier this year. And, of course, do check out jetboyrocks.com. Billy, I'm surprised you're still there with that long introduction, but bonjour, as we say in Montreal. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's been I know you listen to the show. It's been a long month, this month of July.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly. I got some catching up to do as well. So
I'm telling you, putting out an episode a day is crazy. But
yeah, that's a challenge. That's challenging, you know. So but you're doing it, and there's some great ones out there.
There are.
The Nuge and Tom Werman was like, that was over the top great. Loved it.
That one was great on many levels. First of all, the conversation between Nuge and Werman were fantastic. But
yeah,
you know, I had Ted on the week before, as you know, and he's like, we should get Tom Werman on the phone and do a producer-artist discussion. And I went, yeah, sure, I'll get Tom on the phone. Don't worry about it. And I almost got a feeling that he was like, sure you will. And dialed up Tom. Tom said, I'll do it. And I got him on the phone. And you heard at the beginning of that, because I played the whole thing. He's like, is this really Ted? I go, yeah, it's really Ted. Not a joke? No. What kind of, like, I'm going to prank call Tom Werman with a fake Ted? No.
Yeah, right.
Right? And then I sat back for, I literally said nothing for 45 minutes.
Yeah, they were going at it. It was good. You could tell it was like a nice reunion for them. They were enjoying their talking together.
You know what? I need to email Tom and ask him how long it had been since they've actually spoken, because obviously public and private is very different, and publicly they probably haven't been seen together for 20 years, but who knows? Maybe Tom phoned Ted like 2 weeks before. I mean, you know, who knows? But it was interesting. Sure. So what is going on in the world of Jetboy these days? Born to Fly, which was a great album, came out in January. What's next?
Well, we've just been doing spot shows, you know, fly-in dates, and we did the cruise. You know, that was our first Monster Rock cruise we did in February of this year. And we got a new video coming out for Old Dog New Tricks, which is like the third or fourth song on the new record, and we're hoping that's going to be released in the next couple of weeks. And we have some shows coming up in September in Salt Lake and in Denver, and then we're just going to keep on rolling along, doing as many shows as we can under our personal lives that we have rolling on the other side of our lives, you know. And then we're writing new stuff for another record, and then we've got a couple other ideas we're doing on actually covering a song that we're working on, and seeing if we can get the artist involved and all that, which is a total out-of-the-box thing for a rock band to do the way we're going to do it. So we'll see if that'll come to life. So,
is it a great cover of an LA Guns song?
No, it's not an LA Guns song, but you know, that would be fun.
That would be
if
fun.
we did that, I would for sure get Mick Cripps in on that one.
Right. So let's talk Mick, because you're not co-hosting just randomly. It's not like, hey, I'll just have Billy come on here. You know Mick. Mm-hmm. What's your relationship with Mick? You still play in a band with him, correct?
Yeah. We're in a covered band. We're called the Plunkett, and it's a fun and funny band. And we just it's a friend of ours who started the band a few years back, and it's all the proceeds go to suicide prevention, because our singer's good friend, but also a friend of ours, killed himself going on like 5 or some odd years, and that's when this band came to life. And the Plunkett is a former football player of the Raiders, and he was a big Raiders fan, and blah blah blah. So we get together at least once or twice a year and do shows up north, and we just did one down in LA, and we just play like from Elvis to The Clash to Iggy Pop to ACCDC to Judas Priest. It's like all over the map. And we just have it's a gas. We rehearse, and it's just no pressure, no trying to, sell out the room just to go and have a bunch of fun like you're in high school.
Wow.
Great.
Well, that's actually, and it's for a good cause. Now, I don't know if you heard the episode I did with Alan Niven and Ginger Wildheart talking about their attempt. Yeah, I thought that was a powerful episode, and I have to say, openly, I'm disappointed that none of the mainstream media sites picked up on it, because it was it was a great opportunity for them to talk about Alan's story and talk about Ginger's story, but also raise the suicide prevention awareness, and they just all skipped on it, which was too bad. I mean, I know on that one, Alan's audio on that was a bit rough because he was in a strange place where he called from, but still, the content was there, and somebody should have said, hey, you know what? If it happens to these guys, anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Great cause, though.
Well, it's a great cause, and who knows, that could be a lead to something that will go to something bigger. So, it's almost like creaking the door open to that with artists coming out and talking about it. And Ginger's very vocal about it. I'm a huge Ginger fan, and I know him, and, for him to talk about all that. And even Alan, that takes a huge, courageous step to come forward and to talk about how you feel and what's going on in your life like that, So
big reveal. Anyway, not to discount that conversation, but let me get back to Mick Cripps for a second. During the interview, we talk about his new band, The Brutalists. We focus on The Brutalists. There's not a lot of LA Guns content, as per his wishes. Are you friendly with the LA Guns camp? Do you know the guys? Were they... You must have been sort of competing for club spots back in the day and stages back in the day. How do you see that band?
Yeah, well, LA Guns, we go back to the early days, and it was, as it was with a lot of, we were from San Francisco, and we used to play LA a lot, and so these bands would come up north to San Francisco and play with us, and then we would, play with them in LA. So there was plenty of times where LA Guns was opening for Jetboy in San Francisco, and a few months later, we'd be opening for them in LA. I think they even opened for us in LA back in the day. And this is way back when Paul Black was a singer, and it could have been when Mick Cripps was playing bass, and then he switched over to guitar later on. But we have a long history. We used to rehearse next to each other when we got record deals at SIR. And the same week Phil Lewis joined LA Guns was the same week Sam Yaffa from Hand I Rocks joined Jetboy. And so we were all fans of both bands, Girl and Hand I Rock. So I have to remember Tracy and I and Nick and all of us going like, wow, can you believe this? A year ago we were sitting around, drinking and smoking and having fun at clubs and all that, worshiping these bands, Girl, Hand I Rocks, and so on. And now we each got one of these guys in our band. So we have a very similar story in that part of our career,
That's amazing. And yeah, that's great. And you're right. You're staring at their albums going, man, I want to be them. And then they're in your band. You're like, oh, well, they want to be us.
Yeah, exactly. It's
How
crazy.
cool is that?
I know.
Have you heard The Brutalists? Have you heard Mick's The Brutalist album?
Yeah, I've heard that. I think the Plunketts and the Brutalists did one of the first Brutalist shows up north at this party we did. And I've seen the Brutalists a few times. Actually, I have another cover band called the Butlers, which the set list you would love because we do everything from high and dry material to, tons of Cheap Trick and Thin Lizzy and UFO. But we just did a double shot weekend not this last weekend, but the weekend for this down in LA. It was the Butlers and this band Joe Normal and Annie Towners, which Joe Normal was from the Zeros. Purple Hair Zeros back in the 80s, and then the Brutalists. So we just spent a fun little weekend playing some little dumpy, stinky clubs. So it was fun. And the Brutalists are great. I love the Brutalists.
Yeah, I hadn't heard the album until just before the interview in terms of a week before the interview or whatever. And I told this to Mick. I can't think of any other word to describe it other than it's fun. It's not a hard rock album. It's not a whatever. It's just fun. They're just having anyway. Anyway, let us get over to Mick Cripps, the one and only, and for that guy in Maryland at the M3 Festival, which, by the way, Jetboy needs to play in 2020. Eric Baker, if you're listening.
I know. Eric.
Eric.
Yeah, he's gonna get a text about it.
Yeah, he is. Eric, please bring back Jetboy.
Uh-huh.
Me and Billy need to meet in person. That would actually be cool.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun.
And like
a rock talk there.
Oh, they'll be unless you're in catering, because I don't get catering access, so I could stare at you through the window and hope you bring me a cookie. But
oh yeah. Well, we'll make sure you have cater access then for that.
I know. I mean, really.
We're gonna have to have a meal, and we're gonna be talking about the babies and Tony Hatch and all that stuff. So
we'll talk
stuff here.
Yeah, we'll do all the Canadian bands: April Wine, Honeymoon Suite. Oh. You're a big Canadian. What's the word for it? Canadiana? Well, Canuck fan? You're a big Canuck fan?
I don't know what you would call it. I don't know, but I gravitated to a lot of those bands, not really realizing it till later that, wow, a lot of these bands are Canadian.
And who knows, there hasn't been a Canadian band on M3 in a while, so they might bring back the Killer Dwarves or something, and so we could actually sit and eat with a Canadian band. Well, you can sit, I'll stand outside the glass and stare and go, oh, come on, let me in.
The Canadians only.
Canadians only. But, anyway, let us get over to Mick, and like I was saying, this one fan in Maryland who said to me, it ain't the real LA Guns unless Mick Cripps is there. Well, here you go. Here's your wish.
There you go, exactly.
Your wish is my command. Folks, here is the one, the only, guitarist extraordinaire, Mick Cripps. We are speaking with the Brutalists guitarist, Mick Cripps. Mick, I must say, this has been an absolute pleasure setting this up and talking to you, because longtime fan of your former band and the new album, which came out in 2018, August 31st of 2018, is just a fun record. I mean, how else do you describe the Brutalists?
Well, it's a group of people that I've been playing with for a number of years in different bands or just jamming or recording situations. So it was very loose and easy, and they're all good players. And like Nigel, I've known since the 1980s when I lived in England, and we were playing in bands together. That's how long I've known Nigel. And he was always a bass player, but he participated in these long, tedious jam sessions we'd have. And we'd throw him on the microphone once in a while just because somebody wasn't singing or whatever. And he just started doing it more and more, and it just kind of evolved naturally. And the other guys I play with are all really good, accomplished musicians, so we can pretty much do anything. And we just played or wrote music that we really enjoyed in terms of like what we respected from all our years of being, I guess, music fans and your influences. So it was very easy, and I really enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. We have a new album, our second album, The Brutalists, titled "We Are Not Here to Help," coming out on September 6th on Cleopatra Records. So we're just playing some shows, performing the new music, some of the new songs, and the new record is a big step up from the first one, even, if you can imagine that. It's really good. I'm really very proud of it. Everybody is. And we're doing another tour in England in October. So we're looking forward to that and having a good time with the Brutalists.
So talk to me about establishing a new band, but also ultimately a new brand, because as we know, there's, a few versions of LA Guns running around, and it's certainly easy for you to jump back into that and be part of it. But you're going the new music route with a new band. How is it for you trying to establish a fan base and getting the word out and saying, this is what we are, this is the music we're playing? No, it's not LA Guns music. No, it's not whatever London Choir Boys music. It's Brutalist music. How difficult is it in 2018 and 19 to get a new band up and running?
Well, you just have to have low expectations. You just don't jump back into the fold and play large shows and things. We just play small clubs and bars, which is actually really fun. And people from the past and new people show up, and the main thing is just watching the response. And if they don't walk out, and that's the great thing about being in the music business versus something like the art world. Immediate response. So if you're succeeding in what you're trying to put across by just the audience reactions, and it's immediate. There's nowhere to hide, especially in a small bar, small club where people write, in your face. So it's very responsive, and it's kind of it's something that I've always done ever since I left the LA Guns way back in the 90s. I immediately went off and did other projects completely different, like Burning Retna, which was more of an industrial electronic thing, and then I done another couple of albums that were completely different. So this is just another project or another direction that just happened spontaneously. And this band, the musicians, like I said, are accomplished enough where we just can play anything we pretty much want. So we play what we enjoy to play. We're not careerists. That's not the goal, because the musical landscape is different. We're older, so none of those things equate or matter. So what happens, you get a musical purity that you actually enjoy, and the music comes across pretty naturally, easily, and it's fun. It's really fun and satisfying.
It really is.
Brutal.
So it's brutal. The Brutalists. So for folks that know you from the other band and know Nigel Mogg from the Choir Boys, there's a certain sound that comes to your ear and go, aha, it's going to sound like this. It's going to sound like this song. Right? How would you describe the sound of the Brutalists? Because honestly, I've listened to it, and I told you before we started recording, there's really only one word for me, and it's just fun. It's just fun. It's hard to describe other than that.
Yeah, I think it just comes out of a lot of jam sessions because, for the past 7 or 8 years, we'd have these mammoth, tedious, long jam sessions in my studio at my house. And there'd be a different group of people coming by, and we'd play obvious jam songs, but then you get tired of doing that, so you start throwing in music you haven't heard or thought about for a long time. And usually those were the ones that were the funnest to play and would stick. And eventually the certain people that were joining in on these jam sessions started coming more and more, so there was a field developing amongst the players. And it really kind of grew out of a nucleus of guys that just showed up and played and got the vibe right. So it was quite natural and easy. So we kind of dug into the past. I was always fans of lots of different bands that kind of never were very popular here, maybe in the United States, but were popular in England because I lived there for a long time. Bands from the late 70s, the early 80s and the late 70s, like Dr. Feelgood, and some of the more kind of London-based pub bands. So it was neat to re-explore music that I hadn't really considered or listened to in a long time and actually play it. And we still do a few covers of some of these songs we used to jam on. A lot of the original material kind of developed out of that enthusiasm. So when you're enthusiastic about a bunch of music that's not necessarily yours, it's very inspiring and it helps you, create, and it comes quickly. You have to labor it. It's a drag and it never comes out that good. This stuff all pretty much exploded. We have, like I said, we already have our second album coming out on September 6th. And this record's, I'm really proud of this next one. It's just got some fantastic songs on it.
I'm looking forward to that. Now, I just for my listeners, I'm going to say one thing because everybody's going to say, well, you've got Mick on the phone. Why are we not talking about LA Guns? Well, because it's a Brutalist interview, and I want to focus on the Brutalists. But I'm going to tell you this story. I was out at M3 to see the Steve Riley, Kelly Nichols version of LA Guns, and I was talking to a fan in the stands, and I was expecting him to say, well, he looks at me and he goes, it's not LA Guns without, and I thought he was going to say Phil or Tracy, and he goes, it's not LA Guns without Mick Cripps. So there is still a great appreciation and love for what you did with that band back in the day. Doesn't that make you feel good, or isn't that great that the fans still love you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great experience, and we were very lucky because we did it. The timing was incredibly right. It was just the right time to do that kind of music, and and we had a blast doing it, and it went on for a long time. And like I said, those guys are still out there, but it is something that I don't look down on. It's definitely something that was the experiences we had together and the places we traveled, and it is something that not too many people can do or have done, to be in a professional rock and roll band that travels the world for a number of years and you get actually paid for it. So there's nothing wrong with that. Believe me, good career choice. Things were different back then. It could be a career. I feel a little bit sad for the kids these days because of the internet and everything, and the probability of making a career out of music is more difficult. But there's other ways people do it now, online and things. So it's just a different landscape. But like I said, we go out and just bash our ways through bars and clubs playing this music. The same approach we would have had back in 1988 or 1990. So nothing's really changed for us because we're from a different generation. With that said, right. It's a lot harder work. You sweat and work as you're older, but it's great. It's exhilarating. Yeah.
So let me talk to you about some of the bands that you've been with outside of the Lag camp. You did Burning Retna.
Which was a great record, and you can still download it. That was on Cleopatra. Charlie Clouser and Sean Bevan and Chris Bradshaw. Was an old friend of ours from England, from London. He had a great voice. He was an amazing singer. Unfortunately, we only had the opportunity to make one record, and it was kind of sandwiched between the industrial music thing that was happening in the mid to late 90s, and it kind of has that stamp on it. So there is a bit of a timestamp of what type of sound that record produced, but it was a great record. There's a couple songs on there that are just fantastic, and the lyrics that Chris wrote are exceptional. He was a great lyricist, great singer too. So that was a good one.
Yeah, it really was. But okay, so let me ask you this, because when you were in LA Guns, you had a certain sound. It was this sort of sleazy, dirty rock and roll. Everything you've done since, and correct me if I'm wrong, but everything you've done since has been very much not that. Talk to me about the different musical directions you've taken and why you've taken them. Because, again, it would be very easy to just plug in, turn up the Marshalls to 10 and say, well, hey, here's Sex Action number 2. Talk to me about doing different stuff with Burning Retna, with the Brutalists, and establishing a new sound for yourself.
Well, if I wanted to do dirty hard rock, I'd do it with those guys again, because they do it well, and if I wanted to do that, I'd play with those guys. But they're off doing their thing, and there's a lot of other different musical directions to explore. And I was doing some film music for a while. That was all right. It's not the same as being in a group or a live situation. But then I was in a couple other bands up in San Francisco, and I played in different friends' bands between here and the Bay Area a lot. And it's just my preference. I like to mix things up, always change things around, and not get set in one particular style or direction. It just keeps it more, I would say interesting, but it just keeps my attention more. It keeps me focused more. If it's the same thing over and over, it gets dull, and then I think the creative process gets stale. Then people start disliking each other, and that's when I usually get out of that situation, when that staleness sits in. Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. So, speaking of the Brutalists, then, what does that mean for the musical choices you make with the band? You've said that album 2 is more mature, better, or you're prouder of it than the first one. Do you move?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh well, like I said, I know the question is with these guys that I work with. They're all pretty much on the same. Musical level in terms of like what they want to do too. They're all playing in other groups and playing in cover bands or whatever. Their musical tastes are all across the board. I mean, from every category. So, I mean, the next Brutalists album could be something completely different. We might change it just for the sake of changing it, you know, just to throw people a curveball, because it really doesn't matter. Like I said, we're not approaching this as careerists or anything with this. It's just putting out music that we like, and if people like it, that's even better. You know what I mean? So we're not really tailoring it for any sound or any group of people, you know, and we're older, so there really isn't a scene to play to. You just play to anybody. I mean, every nightly when we play, it's completely different every night. There isn't like a type of fan that comes and sees us. You know what I mean? It's all across the board. It's diversified as the internet is. There isn't that solidarity amongst audiences, I think, as much anymore. Has been for a long time. So it doesn't matter. Those thoughts are, you know, only brought up when, you know, people like, no offense, but when you interviews, because you got to try to figure who you're talking to, you got to kind of figure it out. So that's the best way I can explain it, because we just played it so many different types of people. It doesn't really matter if we have a direction or not. You know, I mean, we just play music.
Right. And so I always, when I do interviews, I sort of say, well, are you going to be more like ACDC and put out the same album for, you know, 30 years? Or are you going to be more like U2 and just sort of go with what feels right? And so I guess
would probably side on that approach, but nothing against having the ACDC approach either, or even like what the LA Guns guys are doing. They're sticking to their proverbial guns and keep a certain audience. And that works for them, you know. So that's just another way to do it, you know.
And again, like you said, there's nothing wrong with it. And ACDC, by playing stadiums, certainly has proved that there's a market for what they do.
Yeah, that's probably smarter, you know, than anything I've been talking about. So there's the point I'm trying to make. There isn't any written laws anymore like there used to be when we were, you know, when we were careerists in the music business.
Well, sure. When you came up and you were in LA Guns, they said, okay, you're a Sunset Strip band. That means you got to wear this kind of clothes and you got to play this kind of song. And, you need the power ballad because that's what MTV's playing. So let's get to it, boys. I mean, but yeah, we're past that. That doesn't, it might exist in the pop world or maybe the country rock world, or modern country, whatever they call it. But it's certainly not part of what we do anymore. You mentioned writing for movies. Talk to me about that, because I know a lot of musicians. You know, Phil Lewis went off and did stuff for Fox. Brad Gillis does stuff for TV and commercials as well. A lot of guys do that. Was that something that was challenging for you? Is it something you'd like to do? Because you could make a lot of money and sit at home and not have to deal with interviews.
It was just another experience. It was just fact because I was working at a music publishing company after I was out of LA Guns, and there was those opportunities to do, you know, more like trailer work and sound effect work and show reels for sports and television things, you know, background music. But it was presented, hey, do you want to do this? Sure, I'll do it. You know, so I did that for a little while. Worked with a few different musicians, and that was back in the earlier days of home recording, and when, you know, Pro Tools had just taken over the recording process. So it was also a learning curve in terms of like learning all the new recording technology back then, and just having the ability to kind of not rely on a big studio. You know, those days are gone as well, but that was the beginning of that, you know, the late 90s. So it was just another experience in the whole, I guess, realm of music. You know, you learn how to do it yourself, and, you know, then it helps you on in the future. I mean, like these Brutalists records, we recorded ourselves in our own home studios, and then we would record certain things at a studio, a small vintage studio in downtown LA that we used, and we mixed there. But most of it was recorded like in my home studio or in the other guitar player Kent's studio, and we would do all the editing ourselves, me and Kent, and pretty much do all the, you know, the producing, the production and everything. And then the finality of it was all mixed in the analog studio that we used downtown. So I mean, it all paid off in the end, because you can make great records these days for just a couple $1,000s, whereas back in the day, records would average $100,000 to $200,000. And I, in hindsight, I look back and most of that was just padded on and, jacked up your recording debt to the record company. You really didn't need it. Even back then, you didn't need it. So, in some respects, the way the music world has evolved is healthy. I dismiss the focus of how things were, whereas today, like I said, everything is very more fragmented. So you can't really keep up with anything. Like I used to pride myself being able to know everything that was going on in the music world. Right? No, well, this guy's playing with this band, this new music's out. Now it's really difficult. It's quite a job to figure everything out. The diversification of, just in rap music, there's 100 different genres of rap music. Let alone rock music and electronic music, and every genre is so fractionalized, but it's also interesting. It takes a long time to get through it, and with iTunes and streaming services now, you have 5,000 record stores in your hand, so it's quite mind-boggling.
Oh, it's amazing.
You can put perspective and compare it to how things used to be.
Well, just think, like, for this interview, in the old days when I had to do an interview, either the record company had to send it to me, and if they didn't, I'd have to go down to the record store, like a Towers, and try to buy it. For this one, I just went over to Spotify, I typed in the Brutalists, and it was there, and I went, yeah, this fucking works for me. I like this. And here we are. Yeah. Didn't have to leave the couch. It was perfect.
Yeah, I made a fraction of a microcent from you listening to it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
By the way, let me just plug this. Facebook.com/The Brutalist Band. That's Brutalist with an S. The Brutalist Band on Facebook. Do like that page and follow the band. You have got in there Robert.
What's that?
You in the band. You have got your brother, correct?
He left the band. Actually.
Oh.
He left the band when we returned from our English tour last year. He left the band. We replaced him with a friend of ours from England, Luke Bosendorfer. He's the new bass player. And he was in a band with Guy Griffin called Glimmer and a number of bands. He's been around for a while. He's a great guy with another friend from way back, and he's the new bass player, Luke.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, let me still ask you the question anyway. But how was it being in a band with a brother? Because that's usually either a great combination or it's a horrible combination. How was it for you to be in the band with a brother?
I have a lot of empathy for the Gallagher brothers. Put it that way.
Right.
That's all I can say on that.
Okay, so
for some brothers it might work. For the Gallaghers, it didn't. For the Cripps brothers, it didn't work. It wasn't good. That's between me and him. It wasn't anything to do with anybody else. But and he's my twin brother. That makes it even more difficult. Wow.
Okay, so in terms of musical direction, is the Brutalist sort of the be all and end all for you, where you want to quote unquote retire or ride into the sunset as a member of the Brutalists, or is this just another band on the music?
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, if we stop doing this for a couple of years, we'll pick it up again. It's that friendly. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, but I tell you that the thing that's really rewarding about it is just the music. I really enjoy. I can actually listen to the songs. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, a lot of musicians say this. It's hard for them to listen to the music again and again after you've already, you've been performing it and you've recorded it. And you get tired of it, obviously. But I haven't gotten tired of any of this music yet. It's all really good. I really like it. So that's a good thing. So
that's a great thing. And, it's a little bit like doing these interviews. I will listen to them as we're doing it now, and then I'll listen to it as I put the show together, but I don't sit down in 6 months and listen to past episodes. Do you pull out any of your past records, whether it's with Burning Retna or LA Guns, and listen to them and say, yeah, that was pretty good, or ooh, what was I doing on guitar? Thank God I've matured and can play it better now. Like, do you sort of critique your own work?
Yeah, I do that with the Burning Retna record a lot. Late nights, if I'm out on the computer or something and I'm spacing out, I'll put on a couple, there's 2 or 3 particular songs on that album that when I go back and listen to them, they really blow my mind. So sometimes I do that, but not often.
If fans want to play along, what are the songs here that you? Hold on here. I'm gonna find it. The Frozen Lies, right?
Right. City of the Dead.
All right.
A song there called City of the Dead.
Yeah, song number 2, City of the Dead. Okay, and which is the other one? Portrait
of Charlotte.
Oh, so the first 2. Okay.
Yeah, the painting that eats people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mick,
the singer Chris Bradshaw was an excellent lyricist. He wrote some phenomenal lyrics.
He did, and I do suggest that folks go check that out because, Cleopatra has been one of these companies with they sort of stayed under the radar, but they've always put out these interesting releases. And I'm forgetting the name of the guy who owns it. Brian Pereira, right? He's got a great sense of vision. Yes, for a while he did all the tribute records, and then he started doing the boom-bitty boom.
Yeah.
Right.
He had that catalog.
Yes.
A monstrously big catalog of artists and music, and now he's in the film business. So he's putting out a lot of movies. In fact, we went to one of his premieres the other night. He's involved in a lot of things. I've known Brian forever, since I moved back. Since I moved here from, in the late '80s from England, he used to work. He was doing in the clothing and kind of the peripheral areas of the music business, and he used to do things with LA Guns for us. And then he started his own record label, him and his wife Yvonne, and it just grew. He's still doing it. It's great. He's one of the big indies that are still there. A lot of them fell by the wayside, but he's done really well, and he's still doing well.
Yeah, and I got to say, he was always exceptionally nice to me. I remember one time I think it was in Marina del Rey where they had their factory or whatever, their warehouse, and he invited me down. I'm from Montreal, and he invited me down, and he said, just go through the factory and just pick out whatever CDs you want. Now, I could have probably walked out with 100 or 200 CDs. I picked like 10 or 15, and he was like, yeah, you can just have those. You're welcome. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, thank you. So no, nothing but good things for him. But Mick, this has been an absolute pleasure, and I do encourage everybody listening, go check out the Brutalists album that came out last year. It's the Brutalist. It is fun. And the next one is coming out in September. Musically, even though it's evolved a bit, is it sort of still the same vein, with the fun stuff, or did you take a little bit of a right turn?
There is the nuggets on there that are, what you would expect just from knowing the first record, new and improved, obviously, but there's some other music on there that was really surprising, and I'd like to speak with you again after you've heard the new record and get your opinion about it.
Yeah, well, feel free to send me some demos.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you an email in a minute, and we'll sort all that out. But also, we have a website too, the Brutalists.net. So that's just kind of a condensed little website, but it lists, tour dates, and it has actually a Spotify playlist on there, so you can listen to the records. But it has information about the new album coming out and everything. We are not here to help. That's the title.
Yeah. Here we are. Brutalist.net. New album release date September 6th. We are not here to help on Cleopatra Records, and there's an official video for Know Your Value. Form and Function. Great stuff. Jungle Nasty. By the way, Jungle Nasty is a great song. That's a fucking great song.
Well, we have our first single coming out in about just 3 or 4 weeks off the new album called Take It All Away. and there's a video that's done that'll be released in about 3 weeks. So that'll come up on that website and it'll be on YouTube. Check that out. And then there's actually 2 more videos that we've almost finished that be part of this new record. So the first one, Take It All Away, comes out in about 3 or 4 weeks, just around the time of the release of the album. So definitely look out for those.
That's great. And Mick, I'll just say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for the interview today. Thank you for all the music over the years. I have listened to everything you've played on, and I've enjoyed it. And to that fan in Maryland at M3, you know what? You're right.
How much did you pay him?
Didn't pay him anything. I just thought that was amazing. It was if Mick Cripps ain't there, it ain't. And I just thought, yeah, okay, you're right. Why not? But there you go. As we say in Montreal, merci, monsieur. Thank you so much. Merci.
Right. Now I'll be in touch. Thank you.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk.